Live from the Plutopia News Network, this is the Plutopia Happy Hour. Our guest this evening is Tom Brown. The not ready for cable news players are here. Susie Sheeler, Maggie Duvall, and I'm Scoop Sweeney. And our good friend John Lebkowski is not with us tonight. He will be with us soon, but he's taking a little time off. So, Tom, welcome. And had a bit of a technical challenge here. So, this is live-ish, actually. I was lying on the introduction. So, welcome to our live-ish show.
It was live when you said it.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. I'm really glad to see y'all again. I guess John and Plutopia had Matt and Reese and myself on. I think it was just audio only, maybe 3 years ago.
Yeah, we had you on the podcast, which was really nice, and you lured me into trying out IndieWeb, and you wanted to explain IndieWeb.
Right, yeah.
Because the web has always been kind of indie, but you are into IndieWeb. Is it a language? Is it a program? What is it?
It's I think it's mostly a community of people who wanted to kind of roll back what's happened with social media over the last say 15 years, maybe like roll it back to 2005 or before, when people's only option was blogging, and then just add some of the interactivity that has emerged since then that you might that is similar to Twitter, where people can easily respond to each other's posts. The idea is you make your posts on your blog, and then you have the option to syndicate to the big proprietary sites like Facebook or Twitter or even Mastodon, and then those people can respond to your blog directly, or they can automatically their responses can be filtered back from Twitter or Facebook.
Great. Well, it sounds like it's more in the spirit of the web that we used to know.
Oh, definitely. And I think it was it was more fun back then because never had the possibility of the rug being pulled from under you with your news feed.
Right.
You know what to expect. You'll get served the posts from your the people that you follow, rather than some crazy new algorithm of the week.
Right.
So there's less surprises, and it's more of a community, I think.
Yeah, so it's like now there's a lot of people that I never I realize, after the fact that, if I'm on Facebook or whatever, I haven't been on there very much these days, but there's people whose posts I haven't seen for years. But then I think about it, and I look, and they've been like posting away, and I'm like, hody do, and stuff like that. And there's also if I try to see comments, it tries to force you to look at the relevant, what they consider as relevant, and like, let me decide that, all right? And then you have to like argue with it and everything. So it's eliminating all that, right? Yeah, it's like back to the conversation. It's just the threading, as it happens, right?
Yeah, and they're whether it's Facebook or even Twitter, they're trying to maximize the activity, right? And however they can, even if it's undesirable activity, right? If you're just trying to get somebody angry or something, and that never happens on the indie web. People never are like, they don't get angry. They're just like posting like we used to, and having fun.
And, yeah, not doing all the trolling and everything. And yeah.
So how do you prevent trolling and indie bombing? I guess Zoom bombing has happened. Is there indie bombing?
It doesn't happen very often. It's something that the community keeps in mind, but the kind of the threat model evolves as things become more popular and more cases need to be considered. But at the current time, it's not very often that spam occurs. But the protocols that are used and defined in specs, they do have security consideration sections where they say that this is what you can do to like verify a response to your site before you actually pull it into your site. And so there are mitigations to that.
So that's cool. And also one thing I'm thinking about is that then you're not having to deal with a lot of these bots, right? Because this news I've noticed in the last couple of days, my daughter, who you remember as being a midget, now she's almost 25. Anyway, she was telling me that a lot of people are commenting on since Twitter and Facebook have suddenly done something about Russian bots. The level of discourse has dropped down to some level of civility.
Yeah.
Like that people like it, and it's like, gee, I wonder how much that's been affecting everything that's been going on. And so, yeah, so you don't have any, people don't have to worry about that crap either, right? The bot energy.
Right. For the time being, there's enough of a kind of a hurdle that
Right.
it's expensive for the bots to participate.
Okay.
So the problem is Twitter and Facebook is free. Anybody can automate signing up
Right.
and creating phony accounts. But on the indie web, either you have to take a little bit of effort to get things together, or you have to actually pay a monthly fee, like say micro.blog, which is actually built in Austin. You're paying $5 or $6 a month for that. Totally worth it. But that's a barrier to entry for any bots.
That's awesome.
In my world of audio, bots are a different challenge. I have bots on my internet radio station that hit my internet radio stations not to get on the station, but to suck the music out of it. We have I have two bots in two that show up from London and two from someplace in Germany, and they're on constantly. It'd be hours and hours and hours and hours, and I was able to get those cut out so they don't take away from my limit of users, because you have a certain number of users you can have concurrently, and these guys have pretty decent programming, because I have the ability to go in and block their IP, and they have the ability to immediately just roll over to another dummy IP and keep on going. So bots, in general, seem to have become just a nightmare for anyone that's doing any kind of work on the internet.
Right. Yeah, and I was just I keep having these in the shower moments where I'll remember things that I buried away or forgotten. And I was just thinking the other day about how much I miss. There was this moment in time for me I'm thinking it's 1993, and I'm in Berkeley, California, and I'm on a BBS, right? And I miss the old BBSs because there was like an intimacy to them, it's like,
amen.
yeah. And I was like, yeah, I kind of miss that. And I like, not all this information in your face, right? You're talking, just in words and not all this, yeah. It's like, I like a little of that again. And, just anyway.
Yeah. In 93, it was all text. And
right.
there was arguments and stuff, but
right. Yeah, but in the whine of the modem and everything, but there was something comforting in that. And that's actually how I found out that Kurt Cobain had died. I remember the night that it came across the BBSs and everybody was losing, it was just like, wow,
Yeah, I guess that was like 94, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah,
Right.
those days, online gaming was basically text. It was like the adventure. Did you ever play the adventure game? You're in the cave and you have to go and pick up whatever.
I was living in Paris at this time, and my girlfriend got a job teaching English at a company that they had bought computers and were teaching people how to use them. It was like the first thing. And she
Right.
got to bring one home, and we were just all fucking terrified of it. And just it sat in the corner, and we just kind of would cast looks occasionally, like this was going to turn on without us knowing.
Right.
So that's how I first met the computer, and I guess how most Europeans did. It's just a very but they were already doing that, like the where you could call and buy tickets for everything, and it was all called, it wasn't a telephone, it was something else.
A
And I can't
Minitel.
remember. Minitel.
Yeah,
That's it. Yeah. So how does that move into? What does that have to do with it? Does the Minitel have anything to do with that?
I know that I think the Minitel preceded like the kind of the formal internet, and so France already had their own internet going,
Wow.
but it
Okay.
was completely separate.
Right.
That's all I know about it.
Yeah, I consider myself lucky because during that period too, because I was working at Exemplar Logic, these guys were doing high level chip design software, right? And so we had these Sun workstations and everything was Unix. So I learned all that command line stuff that like later, was the language. So I didn't start with the CompuServe or AOL. So I had a leg up on some of the people, that later on, I think I was the first of my friends for about 4 or 5 years that was on the internet, period. And I kept trying to do interpretive dance and puppetry to explain it. And it was just that was an interesting time and kind of fun because it was such a new way of seeing the world that people couldn't visualize it. It's kind of like you've heard that, I'm sure, that story about, when the Spanish came to America, the people couldn't see the ships because they'd never seen any, there was no concept. So yeah, it was funny. I would do everything I could to try to explain it. And, and I kept, coming into the pub, Schmidt's pub after work and saying I just talked to a scientist in Israel and another one in Russia. And they were like, huh? Or else they were just like, so I'm like, don't you understand? It's like global. I don't have to use a minutes on my calling card.
And that's the other thing, right? Is that I was just talking about that the other day. Only 25 cents a minute. No.
Oh my God. Right.
No, thank you very much. How long were they getting away with that? And they were getting away with it because it did not cost them that much money.
Oh God. Yeah.
Calling a BBS that wasn't in your area code tended to rack up some charges because it's not like, with our long distance now, if you got a smartphone, you can call the moon and back. And in those days, if you wanted to call Petaluma, it's going to cost you some money. Even if you're in Oakland, it's like, come on.
And you had to have a special card and remember all of those numbers to punch in if you wanted to. That was a very, very, very bad time.
That's right.
Monetarily speaking, for trying to keep in touch with your friends.
Yeah. Or your mom, in my case. She was always wanting to call and because she was back in the East Coast. So yeah.
Yep. Same here.
Yeah, I was a teenager and I wasn't allowed to call anything outside of.
Yeah, you remember the 900 numbers?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Yes, I do. It was sex talk.
Oh.
Yeah, and then you had the psychic talk and everything. And I think I might have told this story before on Plutopia Live, but there was that time I was living in Berkeley. I was right next to the campus, and this is in my early 20s, and my manager of the apartments that I had to they had to have workmen come in during the day to fix the floor or something like that, and I was like, whatever. And then like a month later, I got this phone bill. They'd been using my phone to call like spec line. So that was a little disconcerting. I wonder if they were like going into my underwear drawer and stuff like that.
Wow.
It was really creepy and invasive. And that was a thing back then.
I think the 900 numbers were responsible for probably a quarter of the divorces that happened since they opened. I mean, really, you get the bill and you see that,
Right.
your wife is like, what the fuck are you doing? It's not like free porn on the internet, right? There we go again. They could have just given that to us.
Right. Yeah.
In my neighborhood in Berkeley, there were kids that were able to hack into people's phone system from, because back in those days, they weren't real secure boxes. It was just a little plastic thing on the wall.
And they call it freaking or something like that.
Yeah, if they had some alligator clips in the right gear, they could go in and make all sorts of phone calls. And you didn't know it until the bill came through. And I actually caught one of them out there. I told him I wouldn't send him to jail if he would hand over his gear. So after that, I had a really nice set of gear for phone systems.
Oh man, we only had to use 5 numbers when I was a kid to call someone. Just 5.
Right.
I feel like Andy Griffith.
I feel like Andy Griffith. I feel like, I don't know, Ma and Pa Kettle. When I was a kid, we had a ring phone where you had one
really?
One ring and one long ring and 2 short rings was ours. It was a big party line out in the middle of the country. Because my dad had an oil and gas plant, and so we were just out in company housing, and everybody had the same number. And my sister was a spy. She would get on there and listen to everybody's conversation.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, we were on a party line in Colorado when we moved there in 1978, and now, like where we lived in Colorado is now like another kind of Silicon Valley kind of area. It's like, and that's not that long. I was like, holy moly, from party lines to high tech. It's like, I don't know. Now I'm starting to
know.
Well, we're talking about all the good old days. What does everybody think? Where is this all headed in the future? Is it going to be better? Is it going to disappear? What do you think, Tom?
I'm sorry. I was going to say if Russia knocks out ISS, what does that mean?
Yeah, well, what do you think, Tom? Where do you see all of this stuff headed? Is it going to grow? Is it going to atrophy? I mean, is it going to be replaced?
I think the world's getting a lot smaller, and so that's one thing I've been thinking about is that I feel like things across on the other side of the world are everyone's becoming aware of things that are happening outside of their own neighborhood, where it didn't used to be that way, and so I think that seems like a big kind of phenomena what these networks are enabling is like kind of more of a global consciousness, being aware of what's happening outside of, our little isolated.
Yeah, and that's a good point, because just seeing those images on Google Earth or whatever of the tanks, the Russian tanks going, it was like it's the traffic app, but it's tanks. And, that's a really good point. And just as Scoop was asking that, I was just remembering, I think I met you like after I first moved to Austin. It was pretty soon because it was like jelly and all that stuff. And I remember, I think there was one of the bar camps that you and Rich gave a talk at. It was like catty corner from the hotel. I have this dim memory, and I'm just thinking, because South by Southwest is coming up, right? You know, like, how has it changed for you, you know, from that time to like now? You know, what are some thoughts you have about this passage of time?
Oh wow! I mean, I was actually thinking about those jelly days fondly today, because that was like a kind of a real cool. Get, I don't know how it all got together, but just
And let's circle back to that in a minute. Yeah,
oh,
because I'd like to talk about that.
So you know that was, you know, we were just we're making that change from blogging to social networks at that time,
Right.
and it, you know, coincidentally, it was like that kind of that whole whatever was happening there kind of got lost in the shuffle once we made that transition. Those early days of Twitter were I thought were really great, and were
Mm-hmm.
a great way to communicate with people that we seem to have lost some of that magic. So yeah, and to me, that's I'm hoping is what kind of indie web can kind of recapture, is a little bit more of kind of I don't know, kind of more resilient interactivity than we were having these days.
Right. I was just recalling that at that bar camp, there were two things that came to my mind about that. I remember, like, when you and Rich were talking, there was a room beyond, and there were these guys wearing these t-shirts that said Facebook on it. Remember when it was still for just the universities?
Yeah.
And it wasn't open, and probably Zuckerberg was there, because it was just like the geeks, you know, because this was probably what, 2006.
Yeah,
I
there
think.
was a first Facebook developers garage,
Right.
maybe 2007.
Right. Okay. Because I remember that. I just remember they were handing out t-shirts or whatever. And the other thing I remember about that night was I was just looking around in disgust, being a woman in tech, and everything was booze and schmooze. Right. So it's like the busty woman with the, you know, the Jello shot bandolier thing on and all this. And I was like, for the love of God, could we do something other than, you know, the gigawatts for the male gaze or whatever? And that was one of the seeds of Plutopia, you know, because and then we, you know, because the long story that is not for here, but, you know, I just brought that up with, you know, like John and Derek and all those people, and it's like, could we just do something that's really interesting? and yeah, so it's a really interesting time, and like every once in a while I have these memories. But yeah, Jelly, the group in Austin was started by Dusty.
Yeah,
Dusty Reagan. And I remember reading about that somehow in one of the lists, like there was this co-working thing, and I was like, oh, that sounds awesome. So I remember going to the one at Genuine Joe's, that it started there, right? And then I talked to Dusty, and, you know, he told me that he had to put down $150 every single time as a deposit that they would get back if they sold enough coffee for people to be there, but then they'd take, I'm like, that's freaking ridiculous. This place doesn't get the concept that you're bringing in business. And remember, it was when people were, these venues, understandable, but they were really guarded about their electricity, about their Wi-Fi. They didn't get the concept that you bring more people in. They thought it was being taken away. Anyway, so that's when I talked to Ruth, you know, and I said, hey, would you guys want to host it here? And she said, absolutely. Right. So then it came down to Cafe Caffeine. But yeah, I'm trying to find a bunch of pictures from that era. If you have any, let me know, because I'm trying to assemble like a retrospective about that era. And I found some pictures. But yeah, just for the audience, it was, you know, during this time when there were more and more freelancers, we didn't really have the concept of co-working spaces or gig culture yet. I remember conversations about that came up at Jelly, like this new world opening up. You could work from anywhere. like, and it was an idea for freelancers to have some camaraderie. It was like a water cooler thing, since you weren't working in the corporate. And I believe the founders founded it in New York City, and they just called it Jelly because they were eating jelly beans at the time. They were dreaming it up. But then there were these chapters all around the country, and each chapter would update their meeting info in this wiki that still exists, I believe. So anyway.
There have been so many interesting things that have come up and just been kind of low key, like the news groups and the web and email and video, internet video, and they didn't. And I have this theory that pisses people off. They didn't become successful until you could distribute porn on that platform. And if you look back at the history of most of these platforms, when did people really start flocking to them? They didn't flock there because Bill Gates was giving us a talk on it or was going to give you $1 million or promised that. It's because someone said, you can get porn on that site.
Right.
And
right.
so, Tom, maybe IndieWeb has to become a porn site before you can become the next Zuckerberg.
But the most interesting application that I think, and we just had a talk the week, and I have a porn story to tell sometime, but
you tell it here because we have no scruples.
For now, the most interesting application, I think, and we had a kind of what's called a pop-up session the weekend before last, was for personal digital libraries. And people are familiar with Goodreads, but it got bought by Amazon, and they're no longer allowing any new developers to use the API.
Oh, wow. Okay.
API is completely blocked off. But the good news is that people have seen, hey, this party's kind of died at Goodreads, and especially in the indie web. And like Manton with micro.blog has added a lot of Goodreads-like functionality.
Okay, good.
And there's lots of interoperability. There's multiple like apps that can talk to micro.blog or other servers where you can host your bookshelf. You can add stuff to your bookshelf, or like,
oh yay,
you can say I finished this book, or I'm reading this book, or I want to read this book. So right now that's been kind of like an unexpected kind of app that's or feature of the indie web that's really taking off, and it's beautiful to like go to micro.blog and see that it's like they call it a grid, but it looks kind of like a bookshelf. But it's like each time somebody is reading a new book, it shows up on the grid.
oh
And,
cool.
it's really fun, and I really and it's fun to see developers cooperate and being able to interoperate with each other's software.
That's awesome, because one of my favorite, not because of the platform, but just the concept, has been Goodreads, because I read so many books, right? But I want more interaction, so I'll check that out. So that's really heartening to know that. It seems more like bibliophile heaven.
Yeah, and at the pop-up session, which was a Saturday before last, one woman facilitated a session about how do you do book clubs, how do you
Oh,
get
wow.
engaged around a book or whatever. And so we shared our experiences about online book clubs, and then how can we use the software to get people to kind of congregate around a book and be social about that.
The other reason I'm interested in this is because I'm volunteering with a group here in house called La Coalición. And one of the things I want to provide is like a resource library and, kind of a virtual meeting place for, we just helped to get the new mayor elected, which I'm so excited about, and a woman on the city council. Anyway, so this is really good because it's got that, we're all about community and hyper local. So I'm going to investigate that. It seems like there could be some kind of interplay there.
Okay. Wow,
Right.
yeah. Yeah, I follow you on Goodreads.
Oh, okay.
Well,
It's like I just pop up my book and then leave.
yeah, the elephant in the room these days, and I'm sure everybody knows the name of the elephant, is the Ukraine. And I've been privy to people sending me information about various hacks that have been planned or pulled off trying to fight back against what Russia is doing in the Ukraine. And how does everyone feel about that? I kind of, I've known a lot of hacker types, both white hat and black hat types, and I have differing opinions of some of their work, but I would find that personally a good hack. What does everyone else think about that? Should people that have those skills be going out and trying to help a little country become or remain democratic?
I would think that it's kind of asymmetric warfare, that I would expect like the Russian hackers to be a lot better than the Ukrainian hackers. And certainly there's a history of Russian hacking, like the gas facilities of Ukraine, taking those offline just in the last 5 years or so. I mean, my perspective is that like the Russian hackers are very, very good.
Yeah, and it's government sponsored, much like and we have government sponsored, work of the same sort. And I've heard that Anonymous was supposedly trying to participate in that warfare, and it's kind of creepy. I having worked in IT, running systems, I at that time I didn't want anyone to hack me, but I can see how it would be a righteous thing to do if you were doing it, to help a country remain democratic.
Yeah, I've just over the last couple of days, I've seen Anonymous take credit for taking down like the Russian central bank website and some other ones, but I don't know of anything like it's too much for me to imagine what exactly like logistic or strategically how this plays out. I can imagine, just like, with the whole thing with when Iran got their nuclear facility attacked, there's some serious stuff going on that could have a huge impact.
Yeah, hacking the centrifuges.
Yeah, but I that's just beyond my imagination of like how practical that is.
Well, that kind of stuff really requires the support of a government and an intelligence agency, because you really need to have some deep knowledge to be able to do that kind of stuff. But what I'm seeing, proposed are people pulling off. It's more publicity, and that in this situation, that has a lot of value, because the Russian public is being denied any kind of information. I mean, today they shut down a lot of the news outlets, the radio stations and TV channels there that had been covering demonstrations and stuff. And so there are people who want to try and send some sort of information over there so people won't be totally in the dark, because Putin is keeping the wool pulled over a lot of eyes there.
Yeah, I don't. I'm I wish I knew, but I don't understand the degree of censorship that's happening in Russia. I know that there's significant censorship going on, but I don't know like how much it is.
Well, the one saving grace is that the Russian people are really resilient, and you just look back at how people stayed in touch and communicated or shared art or underground information during the Soviet era. It was brilliant what people came up with. And I've been thinking a lot about the Russian people, because I've known quite a few, and very warm. And this whole idea, it's just like when I like here or California, when I have friends go like, what's wrong with those damn Texans? Like, why do they keep electing all these assholes? And I said, have you ever heard of gerrymandering? I mean, it's like, yeah, people, right. It's like, why do you assume that, just this block of people support Putin? Putin is ex-KGB. The KGB is freaking terrifying. Like some of us remember that, right? Mm-hmm. And yep. This whole idea that like, oh, they should just all rise up. I saw recently a famous artist whose work I love, Russian artist. She does these really beautiful, like folk Russian women in forests with animals and all that. She was pleading with people. People are just canceling orders on her and, giving her hell. And, and she's trying to say, please, I'm not supporting this. Right. And they're like, well, you shouldn't be doing your art. You should be out in the street protesting. It's like, right. And sent to the gulag. I mean, come on. Like,
is she in Russia?
I don't think she's in Russia, probably in Berlin or something like that. But, it's just like, yeah, okay, great. Now anybody who has a Russian name is gonna
right.
But yeah, I've been thinking a lot about it's kind of that slippery slope thing, back to your question, Scoop, because I know that I've been thinking about like, I know with so many people, if they don't have their internet on for 5 minutes, they go apoplectic and start screaming at, it's like the woman at Starbucks screaming because her skinny latte is wrong. Anyway, it's like, if you can't get your Starbucks and your internet, oh my God, I just wonder with disruption, like I think about people in the cities, especially unless you are connected with a community garden and all that stuff. That's the kind of dystopian stuff I think about. It's like, when you don't have your supply chain and you don't have this and you don't have that, I mean, there could be a lot of damage done. I mean, look at the power grid going down in Texas and stuff like that. So, one of the things I'm doing is trying to connect in with my community here as quickly as I can, right? Like, okay, this guy grows this guy has water.
Careful that one of your neighbors isn't an Alex Jones.
Yeah. Well, I mean, fortunately where I am, I think I moved to the right place for me, because it's predominantly blue up here, and I mean super blue. And people are just like, when the Texan who owns the ski valley was working with this company in Colorado to do cloud seeding. They wanted to put up these seeding stations all on the Sangre de Cristos, and they were just ramming it through. Nobody asked the Pueblos. Nobody asked anybody. But it was noticed in the paper, the tiny notice in the back, and it just blew up instantly. This is not like what I was used to in Texas. Everybody was on it, like and people like went to the water commission, and like hundreds and hundreds of people showed up to this online meeting and said, you cannot ram this through without public discussion. All of a sudden the company dropped it.
So they were going to do cloud seeding,
right?
That's a little deja vu. Growing up in West Texas, where John and I grew up, there were always someone with a scam, and they were always scams. Or we're going to do some cloud seeding. We've got a drought going on, so all you farmers give me $50 each, or
Right.
$100 what, and we'll go up and seed the clouds and we'll give you rain. And
Right. And
never a drop of rain fell, but a lot of people's bank accounts were sucked dry.
Right. And then up here, it's like, people are saying, the skiing industry is dying because climate change. Hello.
What?
it's like, and so they were just like trying to keep it going, just like, there's no snow anywhere else but this one ski valley and all that. And, God knows what's in it. Anyway, so, yeah, so that's a little tangent, but it was really interesting and heartening for me to see like people just immediately, okay, we're going to stop this. We're going to stop this. And, you listen to the two like co-op type radio stations up here, and it's like, it goes from like, talk on the res to,
You have two?
Yeah, we have two. Yeah, it's pretty awesome. Anyway.
Wow.
When you mentioned the shutting off the internet, guess who publicly came to the rescue of the Ukraine? Our buddy Elon.
Yeah.
Giving him.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering how much of that was real and how much of it was PR fluff. And he's quite well known for the being the fluff master.
I hate that man so much.
It's supposed to be sending some terminals there. It's like, well, okay. So when they get them, where do they put them? Who gets them? Who's going to get them? And the people who really want to be on the internet, they won't have access.
Yeah, I'm curious about that myself.
He's always got those great ideas, doesn't he?
Right.
Isn't he the one that had the underwater tunnel thing that he was going to save those divers? He had that. Do you guys remember that? He had like some balloon thing.
He was also the one who said that the COVID case count would go to 0 in April 2020.
Right.
God, he got lucky with that car.
Yeah, the whole Starlink thing is a big issue up here because what he wants to put up 42,000 of those things, and we're here with dark skies.
Yeah,
so we actually see the Milky Way pretty intensely, and like, oh, wait a minute, like, what's this line over here? Like,
well, if you want to really screw things up, with that many objects in orbit, all it would take is a satellite killer weapon to blast a few of those, and the whole infrastructure up there starts to fall apart, because when you've got all that stuff whizzing around at 20,000 miles an hour, it can become really nasty. Putin was threatening to bring down the space station. It's got to be where science fiction is kind of boring compared to what Putin's doing. I mean, they never wrote about stuff like that.
He's insane.
Right. He's like a Bond villain.
Except for a short, really short.
Right.
I wish I could
let's
look down.
Let's go to something a little more frisky to talk about. Let's talk about beer league hockey.
Oh yeah.
What the heck is beer league hockey? This is a new one for me. I think I remember when last time I saw you, which is about 150 years ago, you were just starting to play in Houston. So yeah.
I grew up playing hockey in Houston. At the time, Gordie Howe had been playing for them, and and Gordie left just before our family moved back to Houston. But I got in there when I was a little kid, and then when I was 12, the last ice rink filed bankruptcy, and so I couldn't play hockey anymore.
Oh man!
But as I've gotten older, I can't run anymore because of my knees. But like in Gordie Howe's autobiography, he mentions, he played in the NHL All-Star game after he was 50. And in his autobiography, he says, skating's a lot less taxing on your knees than
right.
And so it's a great sport to play when you're older, and the guys like to drink beer. and so yeah, I guess I've been playing at this rink called the Aerodrome here in Houston for about 4 or 5 years now. I'm actually writing code for their to manage their like drop-ins and stuff, like the people who've registered and stuff.
Right.
So they have rinks back in Houston again?
Yes, and now we have like 4 that you can
Wow.
hockey on. But like I said, when I grew up, the last one went bankrupt. It's very, very hard in Texas to keep an ice rink
Right. Right.
feasible. So I'm very surprised that we have as many as 4 now. But there's one in College Station. Dallas is like a really great hockey area. Frisco like won the national championship.
Dallas has a major team.
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay. Yeah.
Austin has the bats, the Austin Ice Bats. It's just really, really.
Yeah. Who came up with that marketing campaign? The thing is,
I have some ideas.
I'm waiting for your post on Facebook, Susie, about this very thing.
Sports venues really don't prosper unless they involve football.
Right.
That's kind of the old Texas thing. You look at some of these venues, some of these arenas, stadiums for high school football. I mean, it puts a lot of the NFL venues to shame because there's a lot of money. But if you're in, I remember when they first started promoting soccer, people were like, what the hell is soccer? You can't get on our football field.
So here's something surprising. One of John Wayne's first movies was in 1937 called Idol of the Crowds, and he was a hockey star. He didn't even know how to skate before they said, you're going to do this movie. So he learned to skate, and this movie is all about John Wayne being the hockey star.
Oh my God. Now, that'll be a one to like watch with the sound off and just drunk or something, right?
Yeah, completely. And passed out, maybe even completely passed out.
That's right. So what position do you play?
Defense.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. The only reason I know anything about this is that my first ex-husband, he played hockey. He wanted to go pro, but his parents wanted him to go to med school, and he did neither. Now he's an art director for some big game company. Anyway, yeah, he was a defenseman too. So would go to some of his games, but yeah. So do you play other? There's like a league, right? So do you travel to other cities? And
yeah, we had a tournament, and just kind of like a grassroots kind of organized a tournament among us guys, and it's like a 3-on-3 tournament, and we've raised like a lot of money for a cancer foundation. And
cool.
It's like a really good kind of grassroots community of hockey players here in Houston.
Right. Do you have like hockey wives, girlfriends in the stands that like come to fisticuffs with the other ones?
Yeah, it's not like Little League baseball here.
Well, do any of your teammates have that hockey smile, the one with scattered teeth?
Yeah. Surprisingly, from time to time, we have some incidents, but there's no tolerance for it. Like you'll get ejected for like a month if you get.
Yeah, I remember in the Gretzky years, there was always these team photos, and they'd be smiling, and it's like, whoa, what happened to all those teeth?
Right. Well, I have to say one of my favorite movies is Slapshot. and I also remember I was 16 when the USA team won at Lake Placid. I just remember how much fun it was watching that. And I think that's when I was out of school for a month and a half because I injured my knee. So I couldn't.
What movie was that? They made a movie about that. What was it? Miracle?
Miracle, yeah.
Yeah.
I was on the ice playing a hockey game when we beat Russia. And
wow.
We all they announced the score over our loudspeaker in the middle of our game, and everybody stopped and threw their sticks up.
Man.
Yeah, because that was totally I was telling Hunter about this the other day. That was totally the era when the Soviets, and the East Germans would like bulk up and steroid up and everything else, and they won everything. And just that when we'd get those wins, it was like, wow, this is great.
Yeah, the East Germans and the Russians had some grueling training camps for their Olympic athletes.
Right.
I mean, they'd do stuff like put them in these decompression chambers to where they learn to really improve their breathing or something. Just ridiculous
And
stuff.
what makes you think they're not still doing that?
Right.
Well, they were doping their skaters, and that caused
Yeah.
a bit of a hassle and a wronged a little girl.
God, that poor child, that poor little girl. I just can't
Yeah.
even imagine. What a
Mhm.
Yeah,
horrible.
but I'll tell you, the women's hockey this time around was awesome. USA versus Canada, just fantastic.
Mhm.
We lost though, right?
Yeah, we lost, but it was really close. And
Right.
Yeah, Canada's a special case.
Yeah.
They're hard to beat.
Right.
I think they
I think-
invented it.
yeah, I think yeah.
Well, I have
Have you
to
done any,
confess,
have you done any curling?
you just mentioned my favorite Olympic sport. I spent a lot of time wasting time watching curling, and I don't know why.
I still love that stupid meme with the cat.
Oh, yes.
I don't know. If I need a good laugh, I'll watch that one over again.
Well, this year they replaced it with a beaver on the rock there, and that was entertaining. But
Right.
my old producer from KPFT, he lives in Magdalena, New Mexico, and he
Okay.
retired there. He's a photographer and producer for many years in Central Texas, and he got me involved because one year they finally had curling really getting some airtime, and I started watching it, and it's like some drug trip. It's like I don't know what's going on. I don't know what the rules are, but I'm watching this thing, and I can't
Right.
rip my
And
eyes
they're
off of
furiously
people.
scrubbing.
I wanted to get me a broom and go scrub the ice.
Yeah, I know, or something, anything.
That's a sign that I really need help.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, in my opinion, the Olympics is just kind of a joke now. I mean, I'm just not into. I think Russia got thrown out of the IOC, if I'm not wrong about that.
I think so too. And Belarus. And,
Yeah, they're working on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So-
it's a shame that that it used to be that politics really didn't play too much of a role in the early Olympics, but since it's become an international badge of honor because you've got all these gold medals,
Yeah.
they're really taking it way too seriously.
Right. Well,
Well, there's
go ahead.
yeah. No, I'm just I could totally get myself in a lot of trouble right now by talking about this, I mean, because there's the testosterone levels, that sort of thing. We could go anywhere with this, and just for me, for the record, I don't think that I can't remember her name now. I want to say Lee should have been able to compete in the women's in that swimming competition.
Oh yeah. Mhm.
I'm very bothered by that.
Mhm.
And I'm also it's sort of it's hard because I have so many, I have so many trans friends. I'm in the community. It's just like we're gonna have to have like an all gender league or something.
Mhm.
You just can't. I mean, that woman had easily a half length on everybody else.
Right.
Yeah, the first time I saw the evil side of the Olympics was, I guess it was 1968 when it was in Mexico City, and the black athletes raised the clenched
Yeah.
fist,
Mhm.
on the podium,
Right.
and they were just basically taken off the Olympic team, and ostracized for, what was a legitimate, I mean, some people don't like to see politics, but, at that time, that was a real issue, and they were trying to bring, attention to it. And
Right.
that was the first time I thought, well, that's kind of chicken shit. Those guys did win their medals.
Yeah, it's
Right,
like the
then-
Kaepernick thing too.
And then didn't we have, I just think about that whole era, and like, was it 72? It was Munich. Was that when the
Yes.
horrible hostage, what was
Yeah.
that again?
Israeli.
Right.
Who did they take hostage?
Yeah, it was in one of the Israeli. I'm not. It was a specific team, or a lot of Israeli athletes were
Yeah.
taken hostage, and it was very ugly.
Weren't they shot? I think killed, something like that. Anyway,
Some of them.
yeah, it
were.
just seems like that whole era. It's like one thing after another. Like Idi Amin, Weird Olympic
Right?
stuff, and then
Yeah.
Jonestown, and then
Yeah, well, we've kept up with the Jonestown with the Joneses.
Yeah, we've done quite well.
In our
I'd say.
era here.
I think we've jumped the shark on a lot of this stuff.
Well, we're going to have to jump this shark out of here in a minute. Tom, we've been capitalizing the time here. Wanted to give you an out here of talking about how people can get involved in IndieWeb. What's the benefit, and where can they go?
Okay, yeah, I guess one of the criticisms of IndieWeb from some people is that it's too hard to get into, and so I would say consider micro.blog because it's the easiest way to get onto the IndieWeb, and it's very, very supportive of the open specs and the interoperability with the rest of the sites. So I definitely check out micro.blog. It's $5 or $6 a month, and you get all this great features and a very good participant of the IndieWeb, and it's the easiest way to get on it. Or you can try to build your own thing. So either way, I had a really good experience with it.
Well, folks, I don't know exactly when we started, but I think it's been about an hour. And for those of you who are viewing this on YouTube, this was live-ish. And Tom, we really appreciate you joining us, and we definitely have to have you back. Have you back on the podcast as well.
Right.
Susie and Maggie and that guy Scoop. I don't want him back. Anyway.
Well, thanks for being patient, Tom, and come visit Taos.
Yeah, thank you for
Yeah.
having me. And yeah, I love Taos. I'd love to visit.
We'll hang out when you come in
You
Austin.
got a place to hang.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.